This police officer thought he'd caught himself a car thief. What he actually pulled over was a Superior Court judge. If Judge Patricia Martinez had walked out of her house just 5 minutes sooner, she probably never would have run into Officer Derek Thompson. It was a Tuesday morning, clear skies, no rain, nothing crazy going on. Just a regular stretch of road in Bakersfield, California, shining bright under the morning sun. Judge Martinez was wearing her black business suit, hair pulled back neat and tight like she always did before heading to court. Her white BMW 2021 model cruised smoothly in the right lane while she went through her day in her head. Get those sentencing papers done before lunch, quick meeting with the prosecutor around 2:30, and if she was lucky, maybe get home early enough to have a nice dinner with her husband. Everything was going perfectly until she hit the corner of Maple and Riverside. That's when those flashing lights lit up behind her, red and blue strobing everywhere. The siren blared just long enough to get her attention. She looked in her rearview mirror, totally confused. She wasn't speeding, wasn't weaving around, didn't even have her phone out. But still, she put on her turn signal and pulled over to the side, her heart starting to pound a little faster. Not because she was scared, but because she'd been through stuff like this before. She grabbed her purse, pulled out her driver's license, car registration, and her judge ID, then set them all on the dashboard where the officer could see them clearly through the windshield. She put both hands back on the steering wheel, fingers spread out so they were completely visible. The cop walked up with quick, heavy steps. He was a tall, white guy, looked like he was in his mid-30s with a shiny new badge and the kind of swagger that screamed he still thought his uniform made him hot stuff. "License and registration," he barked. "No, good morning, no explanation, nothing." "They're right here on my dashboard, officer," she said, keeping her voice calm and steady. "Can I reach for them?" "Just get them," he snapped back. When she handed them over, he didn't even look at the papers right away. Instead, his eyes went all over her face, then down to her clothes, then over to the steering wheel. "This your car?" She stared at him. "Yes, it is." He glanced at her license, then back at her face. "You're saying your name is Patricia Martinez?" "I didn't say anything, but yes, it's right there on my license." A long pause, then another one. "I need you to step out of the car." The way he said it, flat, cold, no explanation, was the kind of tone that people like her had learned to read like a warning sign. "I'm not sure what the problem is," she said carefully, trying not to sound confrontational. "Is something wrong?" "You match the description of someone connected to a car theft that got called in about 10 minutes ago," he said. Her stomach dropped, but it wasn't fear she felt. It was something much colder. "Officer, this is my car. I've got the registration and my ID right here. You can call dispatch and verify everything." I said get out of the car. She didn't budge. A few people walking by had stopped to watch. Some young guy across the street had his phone out, recording the whole thing. That didn't make Officer Thompson any calmer. If anything, it seemed to tick him off even more. "Sir," she said, her voice steady as a rock now, "you're making a big mistake. I'm Judge Patricia Martinez from Kern County Superior Court. This car belongs to me and my husband." He looked down at her judge ID and his mouth twisted into this nasty little smirk. "Anyone can fake a badge these days. I've seen it plenty of times. I'm asking you to call dispatch and confirm this before things get out of hand." But the officer had already unclipped his holster, his hand hovering there, his breathing getting tight and angry. This wasn't just a mix-up anymore. This was about to become something much worse. If Judge Martinez thought her credentials would protect her, the next few minutes were about to show her just how wrong she was. You know what's crazy about moments like this? How dead quiet everything gets. Cars are still driving by. People are still standing around watching. But it's like the whole world just holds its breath and waits to see what happens next. Judge Martinez kept her left hand on the steering wheel. Her right hand rested easy on her leg. Her voice stayed calm, but you could see her jaw getting tighter as the anger built up in her chest. "Officer, I'm asking you one more time. Please call dispatch and verify who I am." But Officer Thompson wasn't backing down. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not like he was smiling, more like he was getting really annoyed. His hand stayed right there by his weapon. "I gave you an order. Get out of the car. Now." She didn't move. Instead, she asked in this perfectly calm voice, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" His silence told her everything she needed to know. Behind him, some lady holding a coffee cup stopped walking. "She's a judge," the woman yelled out. "I recognize her. That's Judge Martinez. I've seen her on the news." The officer turned his head just a little. Ma'am, keep walking. Judge Martinez took a slow, deep breath. She reached for her judge ID again and held it out the car window, her hand shaking now. Not from being scared, but from pure disbelief. This badge was issued by the state of California. If you think I've done something wrong, I'll work with you completely. But you're making this whole thing bigger than it ever should have been. He finally grabbed the ID out of her hand, stared at it hard, frowned, and he still wasn't buying it. You said this car belongs to you, right? Yes. Well, I ran your plates. It's registered to someone named Martinez. She almost burst out laughing, but held it back. Instead, she looked him straight in the eyes and spoke real slow. That's my husband. We've been married for 28 years. If you'd bothered to check the whole DMV record, you'd see both our names on there. His eyes got all squinty. So you're telling me some guy bought this car and just decided to put your name on it too? No, I'm telling you we bought this car together. Joint bank account, joint title, because that's what married couples do. Someone from the sidewalk yelled out, "Dude, you're making yourself look like an idiot." But Officer Thompson wasn't listening. Or maybe he was, just not to anything he didn't want to hear. Without any warning, he reached for her door handle. That's when Judge Martinez hit the lock button. "Do not touch my door. I haven't given you permission to search anything. You're obstructing justice," he snapped back. "I'm standing up for my rights." He stepped back a little, his mouth all tight and angry, then grabbed his radio. "I've got a possible stolen vehicle situation here. Driver won't cooperate. I need backup." More people started staring. More phones came out. Patricia sat there looking straight ahead, hands back on the steering wheel. Her voice got so quiet you could barely hear her. "This isn't really about the car, is it?" He didn't say anything. "This is about how you look at me." Still nothing. "This is about what goes through your head when you see someone like me driving something like this in a place like this." Dead silence. Then, barely above a whisper, she added, "But I'm not going to let you push me around, officer. Not today. Not ever." His jaw got so tight you could see the muscles bulging. A siren was getting louder in the distance. His backup was almost there. But this wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. This was about ego, about power, and about what happens when two people refuse to back down. 2 or 3 minutes crawled by. Felt like forever. Patricia didn't even blink when the second police car pulled up, tires crunching on the gravel by the curb. A younger cop got out. Hispanic guy. Looked like he was in his early 30s. Way more chill than Thompson. He looked at her, then at Thompson, then at all the people watching. "Thompson, what's the situation here?" "Possible stolen vehicle," Thompson muttered, pointing at the beam. "She won't get out. Claims she's some judge. Says it's her car." The new officer walked over closer to her window. His eyes went right to the ID that Thompson was still holding. "Hold up," he said, looking back. "This is Judge Martinez. I know who she is. She was the judge on that big robbery case in Fresno a couple weeks back. You know, the one at the elementary school." Thompson just shrugged. "Could be a fake ID. I seriously doubt that." Patricia kept her mouth shut. She let them talk it out. She wanted them to hear each other because this wasn't about her having to prove anything anymore. This was about them finally seeing what had been right there the whole time. The younger officer, his name tag said Garcia, turned back to her. "Judge Martinez, I'm really sorry this happened to you. Can I call the station and verify everything?" "Please do," she said calmly. "And while you're at it, double check who owns this car." Garcia nodded, walked a few steps away, and started talking into his radio. Meanwhile, Thompson just stood there. He didn't look mad anymore. He didn't look confused either. He looked like something worse, like he was trying to figure out how to get out of this mess without looking like a complete fool. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were right from the start?" he mumbled. Patricia turned her head slowly toward him. "I didn't think I needed to flash my job title just to be treated like a human being." That hit him harder than if she'd started screaming at him. Some guy in the crowd who was filming everything called out, "She's handling this way better than I would. I'll tell you that." A bunch of other people nodded in agreement. A mom pushing her baby in a stroller whispered something to her little boy and crossed the street to get a better view from the shade. The whole mood started to change. The tension was still there, but it was different now. Garcia came back. "It's all confirmed," he said. "She's Judge Patricia Martinez. The car is registered to both her and her husband." Thompson didn't say a word. "Do you still need her to step out?" Garcia asked, looking at Thompson. Thompson's mouth opened like he was going to say something, then snapped shut again. His pride was choking him. Patricia unlocked her door herself and got out. Not because anyone ordered her to, but because all those people watching deserved to see her stand up tall. She didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't fall apart. She just looked Officer Thompson dead in the eye and said, "You pulled me over because I didn't match the picture you had in your head. That's not police work. That's racial profiling." He still didn't say anything back. Garcia could feel how heavy the moment was and stepped in gently. "Judge Martinez," he said, "again, I'm really sorry about this. If you want to file a complaint, I can get you the department's contact information." "I know how to contact them," she said, "but I think this video is going to speak louder than any paperwork." She looked at the crowd, more than a dozen people now, phones still recording. The silence was thick as concrete. "Y'all can stop filming," she told them. "I'm not hurt. I'm not broken. Just running late for work." But the damage was done. The real question wasn't whether she'd be okay. It was what this said about people who are supposed to protect everyone, not just certain types. As Patricia walked back to her car, the crowd slowly parted. Some nodded silently. Others whispered. A woman in scrubs mouthed, "I'm so sorry," as she passed. Patricia didn't respond, didn't need to. Her presence said everything. Thompson still hadn't moved. He stood by his patrol car staring at the ground, hand on his belt, like a kid caught lying who didn't know what to do next. Garcia walked over and spoke quietly, but not quiet enough. "You need to write this up. She's going to report it." We all saw what happened. Thompson's jaw twitched. "I followed procedure." "No, you followed your gut, and your gut was wrong." Patricia could have just driven off. She had everything she needed, but something made her pause before opening her door. She turned back. "Officer Thompson," she said, voice calm but heavy, "have you ever been mistaken for a criminal just because of how you look?" He looked up, startled. "No." She nodded. "Thought so." That was it. No speech, no drama, just a mirror held up at the worst possible time. She got in, closed the door, and breathed for a moment. Not from fear, but knowing what came next. Phone calls, statements, reporters, and people turning this into politics instead of just a problem. As she drove away, the crowd dispersed into the California heat. But everyone there would remember watching someone with power, education, and a clean record still get treated like a suspect. Back at the station, Thompson sat typing his report. Chief Rodriguez, black, late 50s, tough but fair, walked in holding the stop paperwork. "Judge Martinez?" Thompson looked up. "Yes, sir." Rodriguez sat across from him. No yelling, just eye contact. "I went to law school with her. Top of her class. Could have made real money at some corporate firm, but she came back to serve her community. And you pulled her over because she didn't fit your picture of who drives a BMW? I had a bolo on a stolen vehicle," Thompson muttered. "Don't play games," Rodriguez said sharply. "We both know that's not what this was." Thompson looked away. "You ever ask yourself why you assumed she was lying when her paperwork checked out perfectly?" Silence. The chief stood. "You're writing that report, taking time off. When you come back, we'll discuss retraining, if we still have a place for you." Thompson's face reddened, but he nodded. Outside, Garcia stood by his car, watching the sun dip behind the courthouse. He texted his wife, "Late again, sorry," then looked back at the building. He didn't know Judge Martinez personally, but he'd seen her treat everyone fairly regardless of color. Today she'd shown more grace than most would manage. Even as things settled, one truth remained. Respect and credentials don't protect you when bias speaks louder than facts. Patricia reached the courthouse 45 minutes late. Her assistant Marcus, skinny guy with glasses and a constant notepad, met her at the entrance, worry all over his face. "Judge Martinez, are you okay?" She kept walking. "I'm fine. Move the 10:30 to this afternoon. Push the 11 o'clock to tomorrow if defense agrees." Marcus hesitated, keeping pace. "I saw something online. It's going viral." She stopped. "Video?" He nodded. "Let it run," she said. "People need to see what happens when power gets challenged for no reason." Courtroom 3A was quiet when she entered. Her robe waited on the chair. She put it on slowly, tying it like armor. The bailiff straightened. Attorneys rose. One defendant whispered to his public defender, pointing. Patricia stepped to the bench and sat down. "Good morning," she said smoothly. "Let's proceed." The court reporter started typing. Case after case, she kept her focus. Staying focused was better than letting her mind wander. But between all the legal motions and lawyer arguments, her thoughts kept drifting. Not to Thompson, but to what this whole thing meant for every young girl who'd see that video. Every future judge, Every kid with big dreams. During the lunch break, she sat by herself in her office, holding the same cup of cold coffee she'd barely touched since morning. Someone knocked on her door, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was Marcus again. "There's a guy here wants to talk to you. Says he's from the mayor's office." Patricia put down her coffee. "Send him in." A tall guy in a dark suit walked in. Looked like he was in his early 40s. Spoke real calm. "Judge Martinez, I'm Stephen Walsh, senior advisor to Mayor Johnson. I came over as soon as we heard what happened this morning." She gave him a little nod. "I appreciate that." He sat down carefully. "We're really embarrassed about this. And honestly, we're concerned. This video is spreading like wildfire. The mayor was hoping maybe you could make some kind of public statement." Patricia leaned back in her chair, her face giving nothing away. "You want me to make this go away?" No, that's not what I'm saying. "You want me to tone it down," she said straight up. "Make things easier for the police department. Less messy for the city." He paused. "We just want to keep things from getting worse." She stared at him hard, then asked, "Why do you think people are so upset about this?" He didn't have an answer. "It's because they saw something they already knew was happening. But this time they couldn't pretend it wasn't real. This time it happened to a judge, in the middle of the day. No baggy clothes, no running away, no confusion, just black. And that's exactly why people are mad." Walsh shifted around in his seat uncomfortably. "I'm not going on TV to make anybody feel better," she said. "But I'll tell you this, I'm not letting this slide. If I stay quiet, then I'm just as much part of the problem." He nodded slowly. "I understand." She looked at him like the conversation was over. After he left, she stared at the picture frame on her desk. Her and Roberto grinning outside their first little house almost 30 years back, when they still thought working hard guaranteed success. She whispered to the empty room, "Some things never change." But this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what people would learn from seeing who she really was, and how fast all of that got thrown out the window the second she got behind the wheel of the wrong car in the wrong neighborhood. 3 days later, that video had been shared over 5 million times. Morning TV shows kept playing it with headlines like, "Judge gets profiled during traffic stop," and "When justice meets injustice on city streets." Local papers were running opinion pieces. Civil rights lawyers were quoting it in interviews. College teachers were showing it to their students. But back at the Bakersfield Police Department, the atmosphere was nothing like the public anger. It was quieter, heavier. Officer Derek Thompson sat in a conference room with internal affairs investigators. His uniform jacket hung loose on the chair behind him. He'd been put on paid leave while they figured things out. Across the table, Captain Lisa Stone went through his report word by word. "She showed you her license. She showed you her registration. She told you exactly who she was. You decided to ignore all of that. Explain why." He stared at the wall behind her, messing with the corner of his notepad. "I've done stops like this plenty of times before." She leaned closer. "And how many of those times was it a 54-year-old black woman with official government ID proving she was a judge?" He stayed quiet. "This is a serious problem, Derek, not just for you, for everybody here." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't want it to blow up like that," he mumbled. "Things just got out of control." Stone let out a long breath. "You were given a badge and authority. That doesn't mean you can't make mistakes. It means you're accountable when you do." That word hit him like a brick. Accountable. Later that day, Chief Rodriguez held a news conference. He stood behind a podium with his hands folded. No prepared speech in front of him. What happened to Judge Patricia Martinez was completely unacceptable. It wasn't some random incident. It was part of a bigger pattern that we've let go on for too long. That stops right now. Reporters started shouting questions. Was Thompson getting fired? Would there be criminal charges? Rodriguez only answered what he was legally allowed to say. But one thing was obvious. The whole city was paying attention. And so was Patricia. She sat in her living room that evening. No judge's robes, no courtroom, just herself, barefoot, exhausted, but not defeated. Roberto handed her the TV remote. "You want me to turn this off?" "No," she said. "Let it keep playing." The news anchor's voice filled the living room. "While the police department is under investigation, Judge Martinez still hasn't talked to reporters. People close to her family say she's concentrating on her work. In the bigger discussion, this whole thing has started." Patricia looked over at her husband. "You know what the worst part was?" He shook his head. "It wasn't him pulling me over. It was realizing that after everything, college, law school, years on the bench, I still had to prove I deserved to be driving that car. But this wasn't about just one traffic stop or one cop anymore. It was about a whole system and what happens when someone finally refuses to make themselves smaller to fit in. The next week, Judge Martinez walked into a packed auditorium at California State University. She hadn't planned on speaking anywhere, but when the Black Law Student Association invited her to their discussion about racial bias, she couldn't say no. No reporters, no formal speeches, just a circle of folding chairs, students in sweatshirts and jeans, notebooks out, all eyes on her. She sat right there with them. No judge's robe, no fancy podium, just Patricia, the woman behind the bench, the woman behind the steering wheel. A student in the front row put up her hand. Judge Martinez, I've watched that video like 20 times. How did you stay so calm through all that? Patricia smiled, but her eyes looked tired. Because I've been getting ready for that moment my entire life, she said. When I was 16, my dad pulled me aside and told me, someday someone's going to look at you and only see danger. Won't matter what you've accomplished, won't matter how you're dressed, you'll have to choose who you want to be in that moment. You can protect your ego or you can protect your life. The whole room went dead quiet. Another student asked, would you handle it differently if it happened again? Patricia thought about it for a minute. No, she said, but I wish I didn't have to be perfect just to be taken seriously. You could hear people agreeing all around the room. One girl wiped tears from her eyes. A young guy nodded like he'd been waiting his whole life to hear someone say that. Patricia kept going. People always say just do what they tell you. But when you do exactly what they say and they still don't believe you, still treat you like a criminal, then what? What do you tell your kids? What do you tell yourself? She looked around and made eye contact with almost every student there. I'm not here looking for pity. I'm here because staying quiet protects the wrong people. And I want you to know it's perfectly fine to stand up for yourselves. It's fine to expect better. Just be ready, because people won't always like who you become when you stop apologizing for existing. Nobody started clapping right away. Instead, there was this heavy silence. People nodding, thinking, the kind of quiet that really gets under your skin. Later that night, Patricia drove home in the same BM, taking the same route. Her hands stayed relaxed on the wheel. No fear this time, no embarrassment, just crystal clear thinking. She wasn't just a judge anymore. She was proof of something. Proof that your dignity can't be stolen by someone else's suspicions. That having a fancy title doesn't protect you, but keeping your character might. And that sometimes staying calm can make a bigger statement than any angry protest. Because real change doesn't always begin with yelling and screaming. Sometimes it starts with a traffic stop and how you decide to handle it. If you're watching this and you felt something, anger, sadness, recognition, don't let that feeling disappear. Speak up when you see unfairness happening, even when it's awkward. Because staying silent isn't staying neutral. And basic respect shouldn't depend on what someone looks like. Share this story, talk about it with people, and most importantly, listen when people tell you this kind of thing isn't unusual. It's just finally being caught on camera.